Nirmal Gnanapragasam is on a mission. He's the principal scientist at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. Nirmal and his colleagues are leading a game-changing development for the hydrogen industry. Launched in 2003 was the Canadian Hydrogen Safety Centre that will bring together industry, business, government, and academia around the safe handling of hydrogen. Coming up next will be how this new safety center is going to happen. Hi, Nirmal. Welcome.
Good morning, Margaret. Thanks for inviting me here, and glad to be here talking
Yeah,
about
no, I'm happy to see you. We met briefly at the Smart Energy conference that was held in Halifax
right.
this past spring. So it was really great to strike up a conversation and I thought it was important to share with everybody tuning in today what the plans are, but that's what's coming up. But first, I want to ask you, like I ask everybody, share a little bit about your background and what led you to where you are today.
Right. So again, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. So I graduated from University of New Brunswick, Fredericton, in 2007. So from my undergrad in India, and then again PhD in New Brunswick, I've, I have a passion for, again, mechanical engineering, but more specifically, fluid mechanics, heat transfer, and thermodynamics. So I've stuck to that. And during my postdoc at Ontario Tech University in Oshawa, I sort of jumped onto the hydrogen research area. So we were
Mhm.
trying to understand where hydrogen can play a role. So that led me into this current role within Canadian Nuclear Labs,
Right.
principal scientist within the hydrogen technologies branch. And I've been researching hydrogen from, again, at the atomic level, the hydrogen isotopes, at the molecular level, the hydrogen and the role it can play in the wider economic sectors, but also on the I have an understanding on the ionic side of hydrogen. So the whole pH control and corrosion. So it's a wide-ranging experience, and it's a wide-ranging set of teams within the Canadian Nuclear Labs here. So learned quite a bit, still learning, and all that again culminates to this Canadian Hydrogen Safety Center, which
Right.
is the one I'm currently leading, and I'm going to discuss about it.
So about the Canadian Hydrogen Safety Center,
Right.
it's recently began. It really, it's relatively new and
Yeah.
getting off the ground. So when it is off the ground, or if it's not already, what are its objectives?
Right. So the center is going to be a membership-based organization, and we are trying to incorporate it as a not-for-profit independent company. And mainly for one reason, we want the safety solutions and safety issues addressed before the industry starts building the hydrogen economy in Canada. So one of the things we are trying to do as part of the center, like the primary objective, is forecasting problems before they occur. So this is something we have achieved in the nuclear industry, so especially on hydrogen safety. So we have forecast issues for the stations. We have come up with solutions. We have tackled those problems. So you don't hear anything about the hydrogen safety aspects from Canadian stations and the Canadian designed reactors. So the forecasting of problems is a bit of a challenge, also like more like a chicken and egg.
Hmm.
So the industries are saying, okay, we don't handle hydrogen at the moment, but how are you saying we will have problems? So we basically look at that from the fundamental first principles and fundamentals of engineering and science. So we look at what they will do with the hydrogen in the future and what it could trigger in terms of a problem. And we say okay, the problem is occurring, say, 5 years from now. We walk backwards and say, okay, how do you fix it ahead of time so that you can solve it? And in doing this, we need to coordinate people, we need to coordinate different organizations, we need to coordinate researchers and the subject matter experts. So that coordination is the other objective. and then that trickles down into you need to develop standards, codes, and regulations. The next step to that is um, you're also in this process creating facilities. You're creating a network. So the industry needs to know who does what. So basically enabling that access. So the center becomes a single point of contact or single point of entry for the industry to say, okay, how do we get the safety piece covered while we develop the projects and other things? And then the final aspect or the objective of the center is uh, the center could be accessed by regulators or authorities having jurisdiction as a independent advisor if there is a hydrogen event, if they do want to do a forensic analysis or anything like that. Yeah.
Why is it important? And you touched on this a little bit just a moment ago, but why is it important for the industry to have this center?
Right. So, as I said, so some of the industries are new to hydrogen. So, hydrogen is not
Hmm.
new to a lot of other industries. So, if you are familiar with NASA and rockets, most of the rocket fuels today are hydrogen and oxygen. So, they pack and they use it. So, they have a very good understanding. The other larger industries are the gas companies. So, the the gas companies that are involved in the say oil production or fertilizer production. So they know how to handle hydrogen safely in large quantities. But the hydrogen we are talking about today, we call it the new hydrogen industry. And this is where hydrogen uh, is transitioning from an industrial molecule into an actual fuel for regular everyday consumers. So hydrogen can be used in cars, in buses, in trains as fuel. Hydrogen can be used in boats, ships, as well as in aircrafts. So it's a whole new series of applications we are looking at. And these industries, they don't know how to handle hydrogen safely, and there are still a lack of regulation codes and standards. And the other aspect is, as I mentioned, with the nuclear industry, there are several levels of safety. We call it either layers of safety or levels of safety. For hydrogen, we have achieved like 5 levels within the nuclear industry. Uh, for other industries, we want to help them get there. And some industries may not need all those levels, but we want to work with them one level at a time. So this is where the experience that we bring from nuclear, also combining with the experiences from other sectors. In one center, you have almost every industrial sector you can think of in the country coming together and sharing the experience and sharing their knowledge and insights. So we develop like the safety sort of the basis in a much more I don't know, like understandable as well as more comprehensive way. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, there are new applications, to hydrogen, and
Yeah.
the industry is still trying to explore or figure out what to do with hydrogen. It's
Yeah.
it's a wonderful resource, and its applications, are can be game changing. So
Right.
how would the center help, with
Right.
this helping the industry out?
Right. So the center we already created like a program of work
Mhm.
under 4 areas, and each area will cover certain set of sectors, industrial sectors. And you touched on hydrogen being again like it's a the way we look at it, hydrogen is an energy carrier similar to electricity. So electricity, you cannot find a single sector where electricity is not used. So
Mm.
in the future, hydrogen could be used in a similar manner. So you can use hydrogen as a fuel, you can use hydrogen as an electricity storage medium for renewable energy. So when wind and solar generate electricity in excess of what is needed, you can convert those into hydrogen and store it in underground caverns. You can also use hydrogen as a chemical ingredient. So you can use hydrogen to make ammonia, which then becomes fertilizer. You can also use hydrogen in the steel production process.
Mhm.
And you can also use hydrogen wherever natural gas is currently used, either as a molecule for, say, synthetic fuel production or oil enrichment, as well as so all these elements tie together. So as I mentioned, most of the newer applications for hydrogen, none of the details exist. Like in the sense, there are manufacturers of individual equipments and systems, but when you put them together in a new location, new place in Canadian context, there are a lot of gaps in terms of, okay, how do these standards talk to each other, or where the need for advancement is required. So where we want to sort of work with the industry is first establish the center, which is basically a network of safety researchers and subject matter experts, develop uh, uh, projects that will address specific safety concerns, say for a sector or for like an entire industrial region in a particular part of Canada. So we are, at the moment, safety is done at a project level. So individual projects are doing safety risk assessment. They are finding gaps and they are trying to address some of the gaps by either creating safety cases. So what the center wants to do is take that from that project level up one more level where similar exercise need not be repeated. So we're going to basically template it so that the safety cases, risk assessment is done across the sector in a unified way. So that helps save a lot of time and money for the project developers, but it also helps the regulators to be aligned. So when they see this document, they say, oh, okay, this is something we have seen there. So it's very similar. And they look at the details. And so it reduces your whole construction time as well as the approval time. So, and one key part of the center we are planning to do is engage with the approvers and people who are providing the licenses so that they understand the risks on hydrogen ahead of them getting a project. So basically, we are informing them on the risks of hydrogen and how it can be mitigated. So when they go into the table for approval of projects, they know, okay, like, okay, these are the risks we understand. And with municipalities as well as provincial government departments, they can access a center if they want us to do an independent review of the proposal or anything that comes to their table if they don't understand or if they don't feel confident with the risks. So yeah.
Well, would you say, you want to develop kind of these templates, you want to kind of create an understanding, but if you really want to get into the detail of it all, would you say that this is not a one size fits all approach?
Uh, at the moment, yeah, like it is not one size fits all, and like the whole idea of creating a standard is you have
Right.
replicating items available. So at the moment, everything's what we call FOAK, first of a kind.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the projects are in that space, and so what we want to do is if the same project is say if one project is happening in I don't know, in Nova Scotia, we want to take that, and if a similar project is being proposed in, say, Quebec or Ontario or Alberta, we want to say, okay, here is something that somebody has developed. We want to take it and apply it in these new jurisdictions. But then you start looking at, okay, what are the requirements from provincial or municipal levels in those regions? So we will add those layers. We'll discuss with them. So eventually, this template could become a standard, or it
Right.
could become part of a regulation. So we are building towards that. So it's sort of the first few steps on that. And with respect to hydrogen, again, one size fits all is still coming. So we
Mm-hmm.
still don't have like a standardized hydrogen system. So each project has their own different sizes, and the manufacturers are getting towards standard modules. So, and the other interesting thing about hydrogen systems, most of them are modules. So basically, you can size it by saying, okay, I need these many number of modules. And centralized systems like large scale production, storage, they still are coming along. And so that's the key. One aspect is the codes and standards are like still evolving. There are different task forces and codes standards developers working on them. But there are also at an equipment level, at a system level, you also need checklists, protocols, and guidelines. So those can be developed within a project, and those can also be made standardized. So, so yeah, so this is again very early stage in the industry. As I said, some of the larger companies they know how to do it within
Right.
their fence. They're trying to sort of bring that to this new world of hydrogen applications.
Definitely. It's a start, isn't it? You've
Yeah,
got to start from somewhere.
yeah.
How can someone get involved in the Hydrogen Safety Council? Is there a call for volunteers or experts or projects?
Right. So at the moment we are like keeping it as members only. Like so, if you want to get involved, you either join as a governing member or a supporting member. But there are also we are creating like a partnership category where we want to bring other centers of excellence. So there are other hydrogen centers, other safety centers in the country. We want to bring them as well as international hydrogen safety centers. They exist but in a different form. So they do different things. So we are making sure that we are not overlapping. And one of the main philosophies for this center is we really want to convene but not compete. So if somebody else is doing something, we'll just basically extend the arm and say, okay, can you do this for us? So the members, basically companies or industries that are developing projects, they don't have to do the legwork. So the center will do that coordination and say, sometimes the solution already exists in a different sector.
Hmm.
We'll just find out and say, okay, the solution exists with this group or this company. You go and talk to them and license it. The center just takes out of that conversation. So that's one of the sort of the ways to work with the center. And so right now the center has a website, so we can include that information and then we also have a LinkedIn feed. So, and there's also an email connection. So you can definitely connect with us and we can find out how you can work with us. So for smaller companies, we are bringing them at a lower fee.
Hmm.
For larger established companies, we are asking them to sort of more like an investment in the center. So because the governing members, we are asking them to pay a larger fee. One of the reasons is we want to start developing projects right away. And that means we are going to use that membership fee as the funding source. And in parallel, we will also be accessing public funds or any other funding streams being announced specific to safety. And again, you need not be a member to get like access the center or get the center to develop projects. So if you have, say, if you are fully financed and you say, okay, we want this solution developed and we want the center to develop, they can approach as well. So we'll create a project and work with the members. And for, as I mentioned before, so regulators, governments, they can approach the center for independent reviews, even consultation, or even include maybe member staff as part of their strategy boards or things like that. Because we are thinking the safety is going to be an ongoing thing for at least few decades. And just as an example, we still work with the nuclear industry after more than 40 years of hydrogen safety implementation because they keep coming up. Hydrogen is very sneaky, so it'll get into places that you think or you wouldn't even imagine it will go. So that's one of the sort of the nature of hydrogen, and we are sort of dealing with it.
So, what does the future look like for the center? Is it going to be a bricks and mortar building? Is it going to be in a certain city, or is it going to be regionally based? Different centers. What does that look like?
Because it's going to be a not-for-profit members-based organization, so right now there is no sort of physical building or anything like that. So the center presence is mostly virtual, but we are going to set up offices in like different parts of the country, starting with Chalk River will host the Ontario office,
Mhm.
where Canadian Nuclear Labs is located. We're also talking to groups within Alberta as well as in Quebec. So the Alberta office will be most likely western and sort of part of Canada. The Ontario Chalk River office is central Canada, and then the office in Quebec will be the eastern Canada. But this also will evolve with the growth in industry. Say if Halifax and Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, when they start the hydrogen projects, will probably find a place to locate an office there, because the capacity and the scale of change coming with hydrogen is where we are mainly focused. Right now, there are smaller projects, and if you look at the last week's update to the strategy, hydrogen strategy, They have listed all the projects that have been happening in the last few years. But there are more larger projects coming up, especially in the East Coast as well as in Alberta. So this is where we want to sort of have these regional offices so industries can access the offices very quick and in a better way. So after the incorporation of the center, we will start growing the membership. We will also start launching those outreach activities I mentioned. So we'll probably combine within a conference or attach some maybe half day next to a conference on say information sessions for municipalities in any of those regions. And we're also talking to, again, training colleges and institutes, because that's the next part of the iteration on safety. Right now, if you look up hydrogen safety experts in Canada, you'll probably find a handful of people. But eventually, you will need hydrogen safety engineers.
Right.
So we're talking to universities, maybe a master's program, or we are also talking to trade and training colleges, what it takes to set up a training program. So, for example, Energy Safety Canada, they are located in Calgary, and we have visited their facilities. So they basically provide standardized training for oil and gas operators, and which is a very brilliant program. And so that has reduced injuries and fatalities in the industry. So we want to do something like that. So they are going to help us develop the program, and we'll work with trade colleges and others to, if there is lack of capacity, the trade colleges could start offering those training. And it'll also spread as the industry grows. So
Wonderful. You know, there's a lot of great plans, and it's amazing how this really started in 2023 at a conference. So you've done a lot in this period of time, and I really wish you and your colleagues all the best and getting this off the ground. You know.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm really glad to have met you in Halifax, and I was really surprised, as I said, like from New Brunswick. That was after 16 years, I came back to Halifax, and things have completely changed. And I'm glad to see the progress, especially on the hydrogen front, especially the hydrogen export to Germany. So that will kickstart an industry there that doesn't exist today. And with the safety center, we can provide that the foundational piece on how to make it, how to do it safe and preempt the issues so that it doesn't delay or become costly later. So, and this is again, many industries could learn from the nuclear industry. So we have learned few things the hard way. So we are trying to bring that experience and understanding. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nirmal, for your time today, and keep us updated on the progress of the center. You know, probably we'll have you back on at some point for an update and how you're progressing along. And if there's anything that we can do to help spread the word, let us know.
Yeah, no, this podcast is a good platform to do that. And one more tidbit is like, so last week's update to the Canadian hydrogen strategy, actually our safety center is mentioned in one of the highlights.
Great.
As a sort of as part of, I think it's under awareness and recommendation number 22. So yeah, so it's glad to be noticed, but we have a load of work coming ahead. So we are looking forward to that.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
You can bet that I'll be following the development of the Canadian Hydrogen Safety Center, and I wish them all the best in moving it forward. This podcast is brought to you by Smart Energy. It's an event that's held in Halifax and in Vancouver each year. It brings together all the energy experts, and I'm pretty sure that registration is going on right now for either Halifax or Vancouver. I'm your host, Maria McGowan. Thanks for listening. And by the way, make sure you visit reimaginedenergy.com to either subscribe or listen to previous episodes. We'll see you next time.